Okay, let's pray as we begin. Lord, we ask that you will come and open the eyes of our hearts. Holy Spirit, would you come and instruct us into your word? We ask that you guard our minds and our spirits in this time, that we will receive your word, that we will become that good soil. Thank you, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Okay, so I'm going to start with a story. This story is taken from this book, Toxic Church by Dr. Chris Creech. Story goes like this. Pastor John had just been employed to pastor a small town church. Now, the names have been changed, but the incidents are real as it gets. Okay, these are true accounts, but the names have been changed, all right? So Pastor John was excited to join this church, to pastor this church, because it seemed like a good fit. Now, previously he had pastored for 13 years in other churches, and on his first day of work, he was introduced to Betty, the church administrator, who was also a wife of a board member. So immediately, she started giving him orders and gave him work, like answering calls that was not agreed upon by the board. But John, being nice, didn't argue with Betty and did all she wanted as best as he could while performing his pastoral duties. There were many times that he was not around to answer calls because of his pastoral visits, and then Betty would get really angry at him and she would yell at him and she'd get really mad. And then he realized something serious. Betty was not only continually angry with him, she was repeating things spoken in the office, behind closed doors, to other church members. How did she know? She had been eavesdropping on him while he was speaking to people in his office. And this caused problems and misunderstandings between Pastor John and several family members. As John investigated these lies, he found them leading back to Betty, and when he confronted her, she would apologize, only to have the whole cycle repeat itself again. One day, something else happened to further ruin John's reputation in the church. The board, being very frugal, wanted to fire the part-time youth pastor because there was no actual youth ministry. Now, John knew that this would upset the people in church because the youth pastor was dearly loved. But the board had decided, and John was to carry it out. As predicted, the church was outraged at John. When John asked the church board to share their decision, they refused, simply because there were some on the board that were friends with the youth pastor and did not want to be associated with his firing. This incident gave Betty a whole new string of ammunition against John, with plenty of families behind her. The problems did not end there. John's daughter was coming home from school one day when she was raped by 2 high school boys. Out of fear and shame, she did not report the matter until her parents discovered the problem only a few months later. When the boys were brought in to be questioned by the police, they flat out denied it, and because time had passed, physical evidence was gone. Betty and her group now attacked John's daughter and said that she had brought it upon herself. They accused John of being a poor father and spiritualized that his sins have caused the plight of his daughter. It was at this point that John broke. There was a meeting where a member casually criticized him for his leadership, and he openly rebuked her. John had been overworked and constantly attacked for years. He lost it. He apologized to the woman shortly after, but it was no use. Years of defending himself against false charges had made him appear to be defensive and reactive. Shortly after, John resigned. Today, he's working as a low-level manager in a drugstore. His hours are long but better when he was working at the church. His wife and daughter are happy for him. They attend another church but refuse to be part of any leadership or ministry function. Sadly, his children deeply resent the local church, and although they are Christians, they only come to church off and on. Such a sad story but it is true. One of the ways to attack the church is to use the people from within. People who don't even know that they are being used to attack the church. And the results are deadly. Church, as we ponder over these things today, how can we protect one another? How can we defend one another? How do we know if we are being used to inflict harm unknowingly to another brother or another sister, harm that they may never recover from? Today we are going to look further towards the traits of what these men, as we look into Jude, what these men were doing to the church. Last week we spoke about the problem of these men that came into the church unnoticed, corrupting the faith, compromising the faith of the believers, and they didn't see it. This week we're going to identify more about what these men are like. And at the end, we need to also be careful that we don't become like these men ourselves. So let's go into Jude. How we're going to structure today's message is we're going to be plowing through all these 8 verses at once to give us an overview, and then we're going to zoom in to focus on verse 11 in depth. Okay? So let me explain, give an overview for this. Yet in like manner, these people also, relying on their dreams. So what does it mean by relying on their dreams? It means that some of these people could claim to have prophetic dreams, could claim that their basis for this and for that are in their dreams. Basically, it's something that is not concrete, something that they are imagining up from thin air. Okay? So that's what it means. Relying on their dreams, defile the flesh, reject authority, and blaspheme the glorious ones. So, in some translation, glorious ones can be translated as the glories. Some people think that these glorious ones refer to leadership in church. It could refer to the elders, it could refer to the senior pastor. They refer to leadership in church. There's another school of thought that think that the glorious ones refer to the spiritual realm, the spiritual beings, the angels, the demons. Okay, so that's another school of thought, and I lean towards that. I lean towards that because of the example given after this. And blaspheme the glorious ones. When the archangel Michael, contending with the devil, was disputing about the body of Moses, he did not presume to pronounce a blasphemous judgment, but said, "The Lord rebuke you." But these people, see, that's why I'm inclined towards that, because of this example. But these people blaspheme all that they do not understand, and are destroying by all that they, like unreasoning animals, understand instinctively. What this is saying is that Michael, the archangel, of this stature, would not dare to out of his own speak against the devil. The devil, you're talking about the devil, it's very clear, but he would not dare to do that. But what he does is, he says, "The Lord rebuke you." He doesn't do it on his own authority, he does it on the Lord's authority. So what he could be saying, what's lightly saying, is that these people are presumptuous. They think that they are above these spiritual beings, and they walk about as if they have some kind of power. Okay? So not going in the power of the Lord, they're going in their own power, thinking that they are great, they are mighty. Alright? So let's move on. And it says in verse 11, "Woe to them, for they walk in the way of Cain, and abandon themselves for the sake of gain to Balaam's Era, and perish in Korahs Rebellion." We will go in depth into this. But for now, let's just move on. "These are hidden reefs at your love feast." Hidden reefs are rocks that are below the water level. So when a ship passes by, you get shipwrecked. They are hidden. You can't see them, but they are there, and they will shipwreck those who come close. "As they feast with you without fear, shepherds feeding themselves." Here we have a clue that some are leaders. Some of them are leaders. They are so hidden that they have risen through the ranks of the church and assumed leadership position, and they are shepherds. Waterless clouds, swept along by winds, fruitless trees in the late autumn, twice dead, uprooted. This refers to them as men without substance. No substance. Cloud, no rain, no water. Tree, no fruit. Men without substance. Wild waves of the sea, casting up the foam of their own shame. Wandering stars from whom the gloom of utter darkness has been reserved forever. Wandering stars refers to the shooting star. The shooting star that goes across the sky and disappears into blackness, giving us the picture where they are going towards the gloom of utter darkness. It was also about these that Enoch, the seventh from Adam, prophesied, saying, Behold, the Lord comes with 10,000 of his holy ones to execute judgment on all and to convict all the ungodly of all their deeds of ungodliness that they have committed in such an ungodly way, and of all the harsh things that the ungodly sinners have spoken against him. These are grumblers, malcontents, following their own sinful desires, their loudmouth boasters, showing favoritism to gain advantage. Over here is such a stern warning. Look at this. It is saying that the Lord will come and he will deal with these people. And the Lord is not coming alone. He is coming, the Lord alone enough. He's coming with 10,000 to fix these people. 10,000 to make sure that judgment hits these people. Such a scary thought. And we are talking about hidden men who have risen through the ranks of the church, and some have become leaders. And the Lord says, I will come with 10,000 to execute judgment. This is so terrifying. So terrifying. So these are these 8 verses in a nutshell. We need to ask ourselves right now, and I will use this to actually frame and begin our study today. How do we know when we see such people? How do we know if we are becoming like such people? How do we know? How do we discern this voice? How do we do that? So, we're going to plow through and look through. This is the overview for today, the way of Cain. Balaams Era and Korahs Rebellion. Now, the people back then, when Jude wrote this to them, understood immediately what Jude was saying. He just had to say, okay? He just had to say this, that woe to them, for they walk in the way of Cain and abandon themselves for the sake of gain to Balaam's error and perish in Korah's rebellion. He just mentioned a tagline. He just mentioned a word like this, the way of Cain. And today, back then the people understood, oh, the way of Cain, yes, they understood immediately. But for us today, we're like, okay, what are you saying? The way of Cain. Balaam's error? What is that? Korah? What is that? What is Korah's rebellion? So it may not come so naturally for us, right? So today, we want to understand a little bit more about what is this, right? So let's go on. Let's move towards understanding the way of Cain. What is that? So it says here that the Lord had regard for Abel and his offering, but for Cain and his offering, he had no regard. The Lord had no regard. So, why did the Lord have no regard for Cain's offering? Some possible reasons. Some believe that it's because Cain's sacrifice was blood and animal, and as stipulated by the law. Okay? And of course, Cain's wasn't. Cain's was grain, fruit of the ground. So, some may think that it is not in line, in keeping with the sacrificial laws. However, there is no biblical reference that says that Adam was required to offer these sacrifices, or the Lord had taught Adam or his sons to offer these sacrifices. So we are not sure. Okay, I'm not saying that it is not, but it doesn't really confirm it. The next possibility is people refer to Hebrews 11:4 and says that by faith Abel offered to God a better sacrifice. So by faith. So that means Cain's offering was without faith. Even that too sheds little light on exactly, so what's wrong with his offering? when you say that his offering had no faith, what exactly do you mean? So in terms of that, it doesn't really shed light as well. Personally, I think that it's to do with Cain's attitude, his flippant attitude, because we see a contrast in what Abel did and what Cain didn't do. So Abel made the effort to bring the firstborn, to bring the fat portions, but Cain could have just brought any fruit portion, any produce of the ground. So in that way, that is our guess, our speculation, okay? But, so if we don't know what's exactly wrong with his sacrifice, then how do we know the way of Cain? How do we know what is the way of Cain? I don't think that the way of Cain is because of the wrong sacrifice. I don't think it's that. I don't think the issue with Cain is the problem of his sacrifice. But I believe the real problem is what he did after that. So at the end it says, so Cain was very angry and his face fell. Okay, so let's look at this, all right? Let's look at this, huh? The Lord said to Cain, why are you angry? And why has your face fallen? If you do well, will you not be accepted? If you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door. Its desire is contrary to you, but you must rule over it. This is such a loaded principle. When we do something wrong and we are caught, what happens is that the devil immediately launches his hooks on us and he hits us with his arrows and he tells us, shouting loudly in our ear, you didn't do anything wrong. It is like a fishing hook dangled in front of us. When someone points out our mistake, immediately, you didn't do anything wrong. Fight back, retaliate. And if you do, if you eat that, you are hooked. After you have done something wrong and someone points it out to you, it comes almost instantly, doesn't it? That is sin at your door. That instant, that desire to argue back, that desire to, what is wrong, what I did? Look at yourself. Who are you to tell me that I'm wrong? It comes almost instantly, doesn't it? That is sin crouching at our door, dangling in front of us. And if we retaliate, it says that its desire is contrary to you. In some translation, its desire is to rule or master over you, but you must rule or master over it. I believe that the Lord in His mercy approached Cain and gave him the opportunity to do the right thing. See, the Lord is merciful and ready to forgive. He wasn't like so only after Calvary. The Lord is like so always. So I believe that when the Lord approached Cain, He was waiting for Cain to have a response of repentance. Cain, why is your face so down? Let me warn you and tell you of this principle. Back then, it happened already. If you do well, will you not be accepted? If you do something right, will you not be accepted? But if you don't do something right, someone points it out to you. Immediately, sin is crouching at your door, and its desire is to have you, but you must master it. See, the Lord brought this principle to Cain, and I believe that the response He wanted for Cain is, Lord, I'm sorry for the flippant sacrifice. Let me make amends to you. But instead of repenting, instead of making amends, he attacked his brother. I believe the way of Cain is to respond to correction with evil and to choose the consecutive sin. That means sin one time not enough. To choose the consecutive sin. Sin again. The way of Cain says, I can't be wrong. The voice shouts loudly into our ears when someone points out our mistake. I can't be wrong. We all make mistakes from time to time. But sin only has this hold over us when we choose the consecutive sin, when we choose to act out in evil, when we should make amends. Years ago, I spoke to a friend who was engaged in sexual sin. I contemplated for a week how to approach him. ask the Lord to direct me accordingly, and of course, I have to do it in the way stipulated in Matthew 18. Approach him privately first. So I approached him and met him privately as a friend, and I started pointing out gently, brother, what you're engaging in is not right. I did it to the best that I could, trying to be clear but yet gentle. But he started to attack me. He started to say things out against me. He said, if my own parents don't talk to me about this, who are you to talk to me about this? He started to attack me, and he got more and more angry. He was boiling. He started to raise his voice at me. I tried to engage him a little bit more here and there, talk a little bit more here and there, but he was getting really heated. Our talk ended very quickly, and unfortunately, so did our friendship. I just couldn't talk to him. He couldn't talk to me. He didn't want to talk to me anymore after that. Another example, and this time is a positive one. One of the ministry leaders that I work closely with was demonstrating this. We were trying to come up with a common date to work as a team. And I told this leader that, okay, why not we choose this day? But this leader said that she could not make it on this day because of some reason. So we went on to fix another day, right, to do the work. And I thought nothing of it, and I moved on. The next day, this leader texted me and said that if she could meet me, and we met. And when we met, she apologized to me for lying. I was like, huh? Lying? When do you tell me a lie? And she said that she had lied when we were fixing the dates because she didn't want to share the real reason why we couldn't meet on that day. Of course, she shared me the real reason and apologized for telling that lie. This is amazing. There's no need for her to do that. There was no way I could have known. We had already chosen another day. We have moved on. But yet, she refused to choose the consecutive sin. And she made things right. So what is our reaction to feedback? What is our reaction when we are pointed out something that we did that was incorrect? Do we listen to this voice? What Cain's, the voice, the way of Cain that says, I can't be wrong? So the next time someone tells us and points a mistake to us, immediately that feeling, that voice will ring loudly in your ear. The hook will be dangled in front of you, but you must master it. You must make that decision not to choose that consecutive sin, to take it away, not to do that. Not to choose the way of Cain. Apologize for it. In fact, if you're already in the consecutive sin right now, because sometimes we need to have one sin after another to cover up all the way. Know that you can make things right. And I will encourage you to make things right. Because in the end, someone always gets hurt. We've covered the way of Cain. I can't be wrong. Let's go on to the next point, which is Balaam's error. Okay, so Balaam's error. What is Balaam's error? Balaam was a prophet for hire back at the time when Israel was wandering in the wilderness. And Balak, king of Moab, wanted to hire Balaam to curse Israel. And this is the incident. God's anger was kindled because he went. Why was that? What is wrong? Isn't it okay? Didn't God say it was okay? Well, we must read carefully. What did God say? What did he actually say? And God said to Balaam at night and said to him, what did he say? If the men have come to call you, rise and go with them, but only do what I tell you. If, okay, Balaam, if. So Balaam rose in the morning and saddled his donkey and went. You see the problem? God said if, and in the morning, he saddled his donkey and went. What did Balaam do? Because of his greed, he did not heed the instruction of the Lord. He just heard what he wanted to hear. And he followed his greed. So much so that when God gave him a conditional green light, he jumped at it without the condition being fulfilled. It showed where his heart really was. Here, this is a prophet. Balaam knows the word of God. He has heard the instruction of God clearly, yet he is ruled not by God's voice, but by his own greed. Here we have a prophet who carries the voice of God, but his motivation is not God. It's money. It's gold, it's silver, it's money. This is so dangerous because on the surface, we see the works of this man and we think that, wow, what a godly man. But the truth is his ministry is no reflection of his inner life. Money is his deciding factor. Balaam looks at his money, and says, it can't be wrong. He has this love and lure towards money. Be careful when you hear the lure of money, the love of money knocking at your door and says, it can't be wrong. Open up, it can't be wrong. What is our deciding factor? Who points the way in our lives? Is it God or is it money? How much does money influence the way we live? Like, how much does money really influence the way we live as believers? How much hold does money really have over us? Does it affect the way we think, the way we behave? Research have shown that money has caused the poor to hate the rich and the rich to think less of the poor. Is that true for us? Do I think less of the poor? When I see someone who is not as well off as me, do I think less of him? Do I hate rich people because I'm not like them? I don't have what they have? How much is this true for us? So some questions for us to ponder over. How much hold does money have over me? Like really, how much hold does money have over me? Do I have thoughts of superiority towards those who are poorer than me? Do I secretly think that way? Like inside, I don't say it, but secretly I look at the poor and I'm like, must be because you didn't work hard. Must be because of this, because of that. And I have thoughts of superiority over those who are poorer than me. Do I secretly dream of striking the lottery? Do I do that? Do I have this secret wish that I will strike the lottery? I don't tell anyone, but it's my prayer request. Oh Lord, give me the lottery. I open the papers and I see that, wow, this guy won, don't know how much. And he snowballed. Wow, it is 2 million now. Oh Lord. Do I secretly dream of striking the lottery? Money in itself, there's nothing wrong with money. It's neutral, right? Money is just paper. It's money. It's neutral. It's the love of money, right? It's when it has a hold over us that becomes a problem. If I was paid $30 every time I pray to God, how many times will I be praying this week? If I was paid $30, okay, so immediately let's organize a division or a tribe overnight prayer, right? Immediately, let's do overnight prayer and submit the claims to church immediately. Like every minute, you can count, immediately you do the math in your head. You think like, wow, I can make more than what I make in a year if I pray every minute in the day. And I do that for the whole week, 7 days. I paid $30 every time I prayed to God. Every time I pray. Now, if that was true for me, if I were to really pray more because I was paid money, then what really is my motivation? What really is my motivation? If I were to pay you $50 every time you share the gospel, would you share the gospel more? And that is something that we need to think about ourselves. We need to think about it. Like, oh, wow, $50 every time I share the gospel? I think I'll go to NTU, I'll position myself outside, and I'll say, free Coke. And I have a line of students. Every time I give out Coke, I share the gospel. I do that. Because like a whole line of students. And after I come back, claim from church. $50 every time I share the gospel. How much does money really have a hold over us? Now, if money has a hold over us, if money has more of a hold over you than you would like, a good way to dethrone money is to give it away. A good way to dethrone money is to give it away. The Lord tells us that we need to look after the Levite, the sojourner, the fatherless, and the widow. He says that it's our duty to steward His resources so they reach the hands of the Levite, the sojourner, the fatherless, and the widow. So the next time if there's a missionary that needs help, the missionary is low on funds, there's a letter going around, there's a text going around in your cell group chat asking for funds. The Lord says that we need to look after them, give freely to them. And this doesn't just apply to this group of people. See what does the Lord say? He says that if among you one of your brothers should become poor in any of your towns within your land that the Lord your God is giving you, you shall not harden your heart or shut your hand against your poor brother, but you shall open your hand to him and lend him sufficient for his need, whatever it may be. Take care lest there be unworthy thought in your heart, that you say, the 7th year, the year of release is near, and your eye look grudgingly on your poor brother and give him nothing, and he cried to the Lord against you, and you be guilty of sin. So the Lord is saying, commands us to open our hands wide to those in need. We should look towards money as a means to bless, not as an idol. One of the best ways to dethrone money in our lives is to start giving it away. Let's not commit the sin of Balaam's Era. Don't let money become an idol, but instead, let's use it as a means of blessing. So, the way of Cain says, I can't be wrong. Balaam's Era looks at money and says, it can't be wrong. Last point for today is Korahs Rebellion. Korahs Rebellion. Okay, what is Korahs Rebellion? There's a whole string of names. It's not like all these people. It's actually 3 guys, all right? It's Korah, it's Dathan, and Abiram, all right? So it's these 3 guys who has amassed, all right? So Korah and his company has a group of 250 chiefs. And here we have Korah and his followers raising a charge against Moses and Aaron. They confronted their leaders, Moses and Aaron, and told them, you have sinned. That's what they're saying. Who are you to lead us? You think that you are the only ones who are holy? We are the assembly of God. We are all holy too. Who are you to exalt yourself above us? That's what he's saying in a nutshell. Why do you exalt yourself above the assembly of the Lord? See, he's using God's name here. Korah and his company are using God's name here. The danger in this is that Korah and his company really thought that Moses was not in sync with God, and they were the ones who are in sync with God. He's not, I am. And this is what they truly believe. It was so convincing that Korah managed to convince 250 not worthless men, 250 leaders. 250 leaders of the tribes. These were well-known men, famous men, and he could convince them. Obviously, he truly believed that Moses was not in sync with God. He is. Korah's case was so convincing. They were not putting up a show. I tell you, they were not putting up a show because they truly believed that. Why? When the challenge was given to put their senses before the Lord, these are Levites. These are priests. They know the severity. They know that they are going before God and say, God, you choose who is right. I will show Moses that God chose me. They really believe that. I can imagine their prayer. Oh Lord, show Moses who is your servant. Vindicate us and show him. After all, look at what he and Aaron have done. They have led us to this wilderness and made a big mess. Look at what we are doing right now. He's not hearing you rightly. We are hearing you rightly. Lord, vindicate us. I can imagine his prayers. Korahs Rebellion looked towards his leader and says, you must be wrong. This is so dangerous. The deception is so deep that when we think that we are fighting for God, that we are standing in sync with God, fighting against Moses, of course you know what happened after that. This is so dangerous. Have you ever truly thought that you were right and your leader, your cell leader, was wrong? Have you ever thought that way? Like seriously thought that way? But what if I'm really doctrinally superior to my leader? My cell leader, he doesn't go for BSF. You know what I go for? I go for BSF, I go for precepts. I attend every seminar I can find. I subscribe to 100 podcasts, listening to 100 senior pastors. I can read Hebrew, Greek, and Aramaic. Confirm I'm right, he's wrong. Confirm, without a doubt. What if that is true? What if that is true? What if I'm really doctrinally superior to my cell leader, to my leader? Then how? Alright? If that's really the case, then do it the right way. Do it the right way in keeping with Matthew 18. Speak to him one-on-one first. Not go have our secret meeting with Datang and Abiram and go and convince 250 leaders and then march against Moses. That is not in keeping with what the Lord is teaching. That is not in keeping. Meet him one-on-one and talk to your leader first. Okay? If you really have an issue, talk to him first. If he doesn't listen to you, now you can go and talk to your these two and then go and gather 250 men. Can we do that? If he doesn't listen to you? No, you can't. Because that's, again, it's not in keeping with God's way. We cannot do that. What do we need to do? 1 Timothy 5. Do not admit a charge. That means do not take a charge. Do not entertain a charge. Okay, don't listen to a charge against an elder except on the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses. As for those who persist in sin, rebuke them in the presence of all, so that the rest may stand in fear. Do not admit a charge against an elder except on the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses. Here Paul is writing to Timothy, the elder of the church. Okay? And he's telling them that if he hears a complaint about another elder, so the first principle we learn is this: a complaint against an elder or against a leader must be brought to the leadership. It must be brought only to the leadership. Okay? So Paul tells Timothy here, number 1, do not admit a charge, do not take a charge, do not receive a complaint against an elder except on the evidence of 2 or 3. So what we need to do is, we need to go to the leadership and we need to bring another witness. Now this must be a witness. A witness is someone who saw what the elder did wrong. That means eyewitness. You cannot just bring along someone who wants to accompany you. Like you cannot just bring your mother along. It doesn't work that way. Okay? You need to bring a witness. Okay? So someone who has seen the fault of the elder, and then you can go to the church leadership. Okay? So you bring that witness. And if what you say is true, what the witness say is true, and that particular leader repeats his sin, then what the verse says is, then we need to rebuke them in the presence of all. So, what happens if I don't have a witness? No witness, how? I'm the only one who saw it. I'm the only one who's angry. So what to do is this. I will encourage you to take time to pray. Take time to pray and ask the Lord to allow something to happen for this witness to be provided for. I believe the Lord loves His church enough to orchestrate situations, and we have seen this come to pass, where the person prays and the Lord intervenes and brings about a witness for the person. But if over time you're still frustrated over the matter and there is no witness, then perhaps, just perhaps, could I be mistaken? Just perhaps, could I be seeing sin when there is no sin? Remember, this is in the context of sin. This is not, when we bring a complaint, a charge, it's in the context of sin, not preferred methods. An example of a preferred method is, why did John get appointed as ACGL instead of me? Why was he appointed as co-leader instead of me? I don't agree. Because I go for precepts, I go for BSF, I go for all these things. So I should be appointed instead of him. Or another example of preferred method is, why do we hold our prayer meetings once a month? Isn't prayer important? So why hold once a month? Shouldn't it be every day? Every day. These are examples of preferred methods, not sin. Very different. What if I don't agree with my leader? So my leader is not walking in sin, okay? So what if my leader is not walking in sin, but I don't agree with certain teachings that he teach? What if I don't agree? Then how? What if I don't agree? I don't agree with certain teachings. I know he's not walking in sin, but I don't agree with the way that he teaches. So how? What do I do? Firstly, when we have this kind of thought, we must be very careful and take time to pray and to search our own hearts. That it is not a matter of personal pride or my own ignorance. Because the Lord has placed leadership over us for a reason. Nowhere in Scripture are we told to rebel against authority. Nowhere in Scripture has the Lord told us to rebel against authority. So how? You need to determine how core is that teaching. How core, how fundamental is that teaching? Actually, at the point of dispute, everything is core, right? At the point of dispute, everything is core. Yeah, it's core. Of course it's core. It's absolutely core to my belief. Everything is core at the point of dispute. It becomes like blown up. But we need to take a step back and pray and ask the Lord, Lord, is this core? Now, one measure I use to measure whether something is core is this. Does it change who God is? If this belief change, okay, does it change who God is? The Bible has certain issues that are core, that we agree upon. But there are certain issues that are not so clear. Not so clear. And we only have that revelation maybe only years down the road. Not so clear. So there are core issues and issues that are not so core. And the measure that I'll use is, does it really change who God is? So are we able to agree on the core issues and leave room in areas that we do not fully understand? Example, when is Jesus coming back? Is it pre-tribulation or post-tribulation? Is it wine or grape juice? Which one? Can women be leaders in church? Can or cannot? You see, people have argued fiercely over these matters. I recall a time when I was meeting with one of my Bible college friends. We were both in seminary together, and he asked me, what is your view on when is Jesus coming back? And I shared my view, and he attacked me. He got so angry. He started attacking me. It got louder and louder and louder. And I was like, brother, relax. The way he talked to me is, I'm an apostate, I'm denying Christ. I was like, brother, relax, okay? Relax. No. It's like, wow, I'm scared. Very scared. I say this with no disrespect to anyone, but be very, very careful when you go up against authority. Personally, how I would like to see this is, You see, there are many times in the Word of God where it says that when the people rebel against its leader, it rebelled against God. In Romans 13, it tells us that all authority has been established by God. That means if we go against the authority, we are going against the establishment that God has set. That's why you must be very, very careful. The Lord also told Samuel that they did not reject you, they reject me. So you see the correlation between authority the Lord has set above us and Him. There is a deep correlation in there. And therefore we must be very, very careful when we go against authority. The posture that I try to have, because the Lord has never taught us to rebel, the posture I try to have when I don't have an agreement with my leader, and I don't see eye to eye with my leader on some doctrinal issues or leadership issues or biblical issues, what I do is, and a lot of times these are not core issues. Of course, at the point of dispute, everything is core, but when you think about it, like really think about it, actually it's not really core. It's not really core. And what I do is, how do I live with this tension? Is that I live with the knowledge knowing that the Lord has set an authority above me, which are my leaders. Right? He has set an authority above me. My cell leader, my CS, my CEO, whoever. Okay? He has set an authority above me. And there could be, because He has placed this person above me and not me. If I was right, would He place me on top? But He didn't place me on top. He placed this leader on top. So if the Lord had picked this leader and placed him on top, and we know that all authority has been established by God, then maybe the Lord has revealed something to this leader that I have not been revealed yet. Maybe He knows something that I don't know yet. So, can we try to have that disposition of humility, saying that maybe I don't know it all. Maybe I don't see something that He sees. The Lord has not called me to rebel. I will flow. He has not broken anything that is core. I will flow. It is not core. I will flow. And so in many instances over the years, as I grew in my understanding, I began to see and understand and agree with many of my leaders' position as I grew. Because we all mature. I'm sure for a lot of us, our theological understanding will grow in time. And as we grow, some of these things that we hold on to may change. So I want to live with that. And I hold that as a tension. Lord, you have placed this person above me. Maybe I don't know it all. This is all I can see right now, and I believe it to be true. Help me not to rebel. Help me not to become like Korah. James 3 says, "But the wisdom that comes from heaven is first of all pure, then peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and sincere." If we say that we have good theology, then the fruit of our lives must match. The fruit of love and humility and peace must match. It must not take on the position of Korah, looking to our leader and say, "You must be wrong." So many have brought so much pain on others in the name of good theology. In the name of good theology, we have hurt others, talked down to leaders. Some go for conferences and causes and bring it home to the church to judge others with their newfound knowledge. Knowledge puffs up, but love builds up. This is not humility. As a Bible college student, it's easy to become proud and come back and judge others and say, "I'm theologically trained," and not you. But we learn from this verse that good theology never results in bad behavior. Good theology never results in bad behavior. As we study the book of Jude, we see the traits of these men. We see the traits of these men. Jude doesn't identify the theological differences that these men teach, but he identifies their fruit, their bad behavior.
And from their bad behavior, we can see how good their theology is. Worship team can come up. I'll share with you an incident that happened a couple of years ago. I was at a lunch meeting, gathered with a group of brothers and sisters, and one of the ladies over there, one of the sisters, started to share a testimony. She shared a testimony of how the Lord had healed her. She shared that she was miraculously healed as she prayed to the Lord. And she was giving thanks and giving praise and sharing with the group. But as she was sharing with the group, one of the brothers stopped her from sharing and said all his theological arguments against how God heals. He was rebuking her, he was arguing with her, he was not letting her give thanks or give praise. Because at that point of time in his life, he was reading some material, he was listening to some material on healing, and he was rebuking her, totally belittling her healing experience. Instead of rejoicing with her, he was rebuking her. So often have people attacked in the name of good theology. Today, we have learned the dangers that these men were doing in the church. And some of them are leaders. Today, we have learned that a lot of these behavior will come and destroy the people in the church. Shipwreck the faith like hidden reefs below the water surface. And this is what Jude says of them. Woe to them, for they walk in the way of Cain, and abandon themselves for the sake of gain to Balaams' Era, and perish in Korahs' Rebellion. These are hidden reefs at your love feast, as they feast with you without fear. Shepherds feeding themselves, waterless clouds swept along by winds, fruitless trees in the late autumn, twice dead, uprooted, wild waves of the sea, casting up the foam of their own shame, wandering stars, of whom the gloom of utter darkness has been reserved forever. Church, no matter how sound a person's argument may be, take a look at his life. Is he rebellious? Is he self-seeking? Is he defensive? If so, be very, very careful. This morning, as we hear about these men, shall we also take a moment to reflect on ourselves, that we never become like that?